I'm Thelma, and that Thanksgiving night will haunt me for the rest of my life." The sound of that slap cracked through the dining room like a gunshot. My cheek burned, my vision blurred, and 12 pairs of eyes locked onto me. Some looked shocked, others satisfied. And the man who did it was my own husband, Maxwell. He glared at me like I was trash and growled through his teeth, "Don't you ever embarrass me in front of my family again." My mother-in-law smirked in triumph. My brother-in-law chuckled, and my sister-in-law rolled her eyes, like I deserved every bit of it. I'd been humiliated before, but this time felt different, because in that heavy silence, a small but razor-sharp voice cut through the air. "Daddy?" I turned. Emma, my daughter, only 9 years old, stood clutching her tablet. Her eyes were mine, but in them burned something that made the whole room freeze. Even Maxwell faltered, his face draining of color. And then Emma said something that would shatter my husband's entire family. If this story already makes your blood boil, and you want to hear what came next, hit like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and make sure you subscribe with the bell on so you don't miss the rest of this shocking story. After that slap, the room fell into a deathly silence. I stood frozen, cheeks stinging, heart pounding out of my chest. Every eye in that family turned on me. No one spoke up. Not a single voice came to defend me. I wasn't their daughter-in-law. I wasn't even human to them. I was just a disgrace at their dinner table. I lowered my head, swallowing my tears. And it hit me. This wasn't the first time, not the second. It was just one more moment in a long chain of years I'd been forced to endure. Because for years, my life had been nothing but cages of abuse, humiliation, and pretending to be the perfect wife in front of my husband's family. I learned to swallow tears, cover bruises, and smile through dinners filled with lies. And Emma, even as a little girl, saw it all. Maxwell didn't just hit me with his fists. His words cut deeper. Each one was a knife. "You're useless. Without me, you're nothing." I remember the nights he wrapped his hands around my throat because dinner was late. The mornings he threw scalding coffee in my face because it wasn't hot enough. But the worst pain wasn't physical. The worst was having to smile in front of his family, pretending everything was fine. They'd sit around the table, sipping wine, laughing, while I served in silence. My mother-in-law would look me up and down and sigh, "Oh, Thelma, why don't you take better care of yourself?" Other daughters-in-law know how to keep up appearances. My sister-in-law would lean in, whispering with fake sympathy dripping in sarcasm, "You look so thin. Is it because my brother works too hard and you don't take care of him?" And Maxwell, he just sat there. He could have defended me. He could have told them I didn't deserve this. Instead, he laughed, poured his mother another glass, and said, "She's always been like that, clueless." I swallowed every word, every insult, because I knew the moment I fought back, once the doors closed, the real storm would begin. And Emma, she grew up inside that storm. At just 9 years old, her eyes already carried a weight no child should bear. She wasn't naive anymore. She watched. She remembered. She understood more than I ever wanted her to. One evening, while I struggled in the kitchen with a fresh bruise on my arm, Emma asked quietly, "Mom, does it hurt?" I froze. I turned away, hiding my arm, forcing a smile. "No, sweetheart, I just bumped into something." But Emma didn't blink. Her eyes stayed locked on me. "That's not true. I saw it. I know Dad did it." My heart clenched. I wanted to deny it, to lie, to protect her from this nightmare. But Emma, she no longer believed in empty reassurances. One night, when Maxwell exploded over a meal not cooked right, Emma slipped next to me. As he turned away, she squeezed my hand, whispering, "Don't be scared, Mom. I'm here." Just 4 words, but they broke me, because I realized my little girl had become my protector. From then on, Emma changed. She studied Maxwell more sharply than I ever did. She could tell from the sound of his footsteps when the storm was coming. "Dad's angry, isn't he, Mom?" she'd whisper. I'd nod, and Emma would pull me down beside her, pretending to work on homework, staging a picture of a normal family. But her eyes told a different story. "I know. I see it. And I won't let him destroy you." I started to see a strength in her that even Maxwell seemed to sense. Sometimes I'd catch him watching her, uneasy, suspicious, as if he could feel she was hiding something. And I lived in that tension, torn between terror that Maxwell would discover Emma knew too much and hope, fragile hope, that maybe my daughter was the light strong enough to lead me out of the darkness. I remember one night when Maxwell was drunk, he roared across the living room, "Thelma, don't think you can hide anything from me. Everyone in this house does what I say." Emma stood in the doorway, her eyes burning with a fury I had never seen before. She answered softly, but her words cut like steel. "Not everyone listens to you, Dad." The room froze. Maxwell's eyes blazed at Emma. My heart dropped. I rushed to pull her away, dragging her into her room. But from that moment, I knew Emma wasn't afraid of him the way I was. She had chosen to stand up, for me and for herself. For years, I had lived in silence, accepting humiliation, accepting violence. I thought silence was the only way to protect Emma, but I was wrong. It was Emma who had seen the truth all along, who had been quietly protecting me, even when I didn't have the courage to protect myself. What I didn't know was that Emma wasn't just watching. She was preparing, planning something I never could have imagined, a plan that would change both our lives forever. The secret plan of a 9-year-old girl. Emma didn't just observe, she prepared. And the inspiration came from her grandfather, Colonel James Mitchell, my father, a man who once commanded hundreds of soldiers, who had stood in the heart of battlefields, and the only person in my family who never treated me as worthless. To Emma, he was the embodiment of strength and justice, and she turned that admiration into a weapon to protect me. One evening, after Maxwell slammed the bedroom door and stormed off, I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching my bruised shoulder. Emma walked in, her eyes carrying a determination no child should ever hold. "Mom, I have to tell you something." I looked up, my voice trembling. "What is it, sweetheart?" Emma sat beside me, whispering, "I recorded everything. Every time he yelled, every time he hit you. I filmed it all on this." She opened her tablet and showed me a folder labeled Family Project. Inside were videos, pictures, audio clips. Every moment I thought only the shadows and I had witnessed, now captured in undeniable detail. I was frozen. "Emma, what have you done? If your father finds out, he'll kill us both." I grabbed her shoulders in panic, but Emma shook her head, her voice steadier than any adult I had ever known. "Grandpa says bullies only understand when they're faced with proof. I don't want you to stay silent anymore. I'll protect you." From then on, I noticed Emma changing. She no longer just watched. She acted. Her tablet always seemed to accidentally sit in the right place, on a bookshelf next to a vase, propped up against her homework. And whenever Maxwell's rage boiled over, somewhere a tiny camera was recording. One night, Maxwell threw a plate of food against the wall because I cooked the wrong sauce. Emma sat in silence, pretending to focus on her dinner. But the moment he stormed out, she ran to the vase, pulled out the tablet, and whispered, "Don't worry, Mom. I got it. Grandpa will know." I felt crushed, ashamed. A 9-year-old carrying the weight I should have been strong enough to bear. But Emma didn't stop there. She confided in her teacher, Mrs. Andre. I only found out later, when Emma showed me their text messages. She said if I have evidence, I need to keep it safe. She said I can send it to a grown-up I trust, so I sent it to Grandpa. My stomach dropped. Emma hadn't just filmed in secret. She had shared it, and she chose the right person, my father, Colonel Mitchell. That night, I called Emma into my room, my voice breaking. Emma, why are you doing all this? I'm so scared. If your father finds out, Emma met my gaze, her dark eyes steady and unflinching. I'm not scared. I'd rather have Dad hate me than watch him kill you slowly every day. Can't you see, Mom? You're shrinking, smaller and smaller every day. I want you to grow again. I want you to live. Tears streamed down my face, but for the first time, I cried not out of fear, but because I realized I was no longer alone. In the weeks that followed, Emma became what I can only describe as a child warrior. She set up schedules, created passwords, backed up every file to the cloud. She sent one copy to Grandpa, one to her teacher. I tried to forbid her, raising my voice for the first time in years. Emma, stop this. You're just a child. Don't make yourself a target for him. But she shook her head, firm and fearless. No, you've been silent too long. If you won't do it, then I will. God, in her eyes, I no longer saw just my daughter. I saw the reflection of my father, the soldier who once told me, family should be where you are protected, not where you live in fear. One day, Emma came home with a glow on her face I hadn't seen in so long. She ran straight to me, tugging at my hand. Mom, I called Grandpa. My knees nearly buckled. You? You did what? Emma squeezed my hand tightly, her voice trembling just a little, but full of pride. I asked him, if someone hurt you, what would he do? And Grandpa said, anyone who lays a hand on my daughter or my granddaughter will pay the price. I choked back tears. In my mind, I saw my father again. Older now, but still standing tall, as steady as the day he wore his uniform. And I understood. Emma had placed all her trust in him. In the nights that followed, when Maxwell was fast asleep, Emma would sneak into my room and whisper, I have a plan, but you have to promise. Don't stop me this time. I grabbed her hands, my voice shaking. What plan, sweetheart? You're too young to... But Emma cut me off, her eyes blazing with fire. No, I'm not too young. I'm old enough to know what's wrong and what's right. Old enough to know love should never mean making you cry every day. And I'm old enough to protect you. I pulled her into my arms, torn between sorrow and shame. I, the mother, was being saved by my own 9-year-old daughter. Thanksgiving was approaching. Maxwell grew more irritable, more on edge than usual, knowing his family would gather for the holiday. I tried to make everything perfect, terrified that even the smallest mistake would set him off. But what I didn't know was that Emma had already prepared the strongest weapon of all. She had compressed all the files, every recording, every photo, every shred of evidence, and sent it to Grandpa. That morning, before the guests arrived, Emma leaned close to my ear and whispered, Don't be afraid, Mom. Today, everything changes. I looked into her eyes, so steady, so fearless, and I trembled, caught between fear and fragile hope. But deep inside, a dark premonition stirred. I knew that once the truth was revealed, there would be no turning back. I could never have imagined that at that Thanksgiving dinner, everything would explode. And Emma's plan, a plan orchestrated by a 9-year-old child, would turn Maxwell's entire family into witnesses of the truth they had chosen to ignore. The truth erupted at dinner. My daughter exposed her abusive father. The slap landed across my cheek like a gunshot. The air in the room froze. I staggered, clutching my face, the burning spreading across my skin. But what killed me wasn't the physical pain. It was the complicit silence around the dinner table. My mother-in-law smirked, as if I'd finally received the lesson I deserved. Kevin, my brother-in-law, scoffed with mocking laughter. Florence rolled her eyes, disgusted, as though I were nothing but a burden. No one spoke. No one defended me. And then a voice cut through the air, small but cold as steel crashing against the floor. Daddy. Every head turned. Emma, my daughter, stood by the window, her tiny hands clutching a tablet. Her face was calm, but her dark eyes burned with something that changed the atmosphere in an instant. Maxwell turned, still seething with rage. What? Go to your room now. Emma didn't move. She looked straight at him, her voice steady, chilling. You shouldn't have done that, because now Grandpa will see everything. I heard the glass slip from someone's hand and shatter against the table. Maxwell's face paled for a split second. He barked, grasping for control. What are you talking about? Emma tilted her head, her voice sharp as a blade. I've recorded everything, for weeks, and this morning I sent it all to Grandpa. The room erupted. Kevin choked, dropping his plate. Florence went pale. Jasmine, my mother-in-law, leapt to her feet. Emma, she's lying. Maxwell, say something. But Maxwell couldn't speak. I saw sweat bead on his forehead. His usual confidence was gone. Emma lifted the tablet, pressed play. On the screen appeared Maxwell hurling a TV remote at me, his voice booming. You idiot! This whole house can't do one damn thing right. The audio thundered through the elegant dining room. Kevin turned ashen. Melissa, Kevin's wife, covered her mouth, tears spilling down her face. Emma stood firm, her voice unshaken. That's just one. I have more. The times you shoved Mom into the wall. The times you slapped her to the ground. The times you called her useless. Every single one has been saved. On this tablet, in the cloud, on Grandpa's phone, and in an email to the police. Maxwell roared, lunging at her. Give me that! Give it to me now! But Emma darted back, hiding behind me, her finger poised over the screen. Don't try it, Dad, because I've already backed it all up. Even if you take this, the evidence will still exist. The room grew suffocating. Maxwell's family shifted uneasily, chairs scraping, whispers rising in panic. Kevin stammered, his voice shaking. Oh, God, Maxwell, what have you done? Florence's voice cracked, trembling. You told us it was just arguments. Just arguments. Jasmine's face went pale, her voice barely a whisper. Maxwell, don't tell me this is true. Maxwell bellowed, grasping for power. Don't believe her. She's just a kid. She doesn't understand. But Emma didn't give him a chance. She played another video, Maxwell's hands around my throat, my muffled cries filling the speakers. The sound echoed, slapping every person in the room. Kevin shot to his feet, eyes red. God, Maxwell, you're a monster. Melissa sobbed, whispering, all this time, we sat here feasting on her pain. Florence trembled, her eyes meeting mine for the first time without disdain, only horror. Why didn't you say anything? I smiled bitterly, my voice hoarse. I did, with my tears, but no one listened. And then, the rumble of an engine outside. The door swung open. My father, Colonel James Mitchell, stepped inside. He stood tall, his presence slicing through the air. Age had lined his face, but the steel of a commander still radiated from him. Two plainclothes officers followed, their expressions hard as stone. The entire room fell silent. He looked at me, at the handprint still burning on my cheek, then at Emma, her eyes blazing. Finally, he turned to Maxwell. 3 years, his voice boomed like thunder. 3 years you tormented my daughter. 3 years you filled my granddaughter with fear. And now, how much longer do you think you'll stand here? Maxwell trembled, scrambling for excuses. Sir, it's not what it looks like. It's just stress. Colonel Mitchell stepped forward, pinning him with his stare. Stress? I've been to war. I know what stress is, and never once did I use it as an excuse to hit someone weaker. You You call abuse stress? Maxwell stuttered, sweat dripping. I I never laid a hand on Emma, I swear. Emma's voice cut through, small but sharp as ice. You didn't have to. Every time you hit Mom, you hit me. Silence consumed the room. Colonel Mitchell nodded once, then turned to the officers. Proceed. One officer laid a folder on the table. Videos, photos, medical reports, teacher statements. The evidence was undeniable. Kevin whispered, stunned. My God, Emma did all this? I looked at my daughter, tears burning in my eyes. She was small, but stronger than anyone in that room. Maxwell erupted, his voice shrill. No, this is my family. You have no right. Colonel Mitchell slammed his hand on the table, the sound like a gavel. Family? Family protects each other. You're just a coward hiding behind closed doors to beat women and children. From this day forward, you've lost the right to call this a family. Maxwell collapsed into his chair, face ashen. Jasmine sobbed. Kevin turned away. Florence bowed her head. Emma stepped forward, raising the tablet high. Grandpa has seen. You've all seen. This isn't a secret anymore. This is the truth. She turned to Maxwell, her voice soft, but ringing like a bell. And you will pay the price. In that moment, I felt the chains around me shatter. For years, I had stayed silent, believing I wasn't strong enough. But I had been wrong. The strength had been beside me all along, in the form of a 9-year-old girl, brave enough to stand and save us both. A new journey for me and my daughter. After leaving the prison of our home. When the prison doors closed behind Maxwell, Emma and I finally walked out of the prison we had once called home. For the first time in years, I drew a deep breath without fear. No more shouting, no looming shadow ready to turn every tiny mistake into a storm. Emma squeezed my hand tightly, her eyes glowing as if to remind me, "We're free now, Mom." Maxwell was sentenced to 2 years in prison with a restraining order, and what shocked me most was that even his own family turned their backs on him. The mother who once sneered at me, the sister who mocked me, the brother who laughed at me, none of them dared defend him anymore. When the evidence was undeniable, their silence became guilt. They abandoned Maxwell as if he had never been their blood. In the early days, we moved into a small apartment, just the two of us. It wasn't fancy. The furniture was worn, the walls plain, but it felt warmer than any house I had ever lived in. Because there, I could shut the door without trembling. I could cook dinner without bracing for insults. And I could laugh with my daughter without fear of someone silencing it. One evening, as I was sorting through old books, Emma asked quietly, "Mom, are you going to go back to school?" I froze. For years, I had dreamed of becoming a nurse, but Maxwell crushed that dream, calling me stupid, not smart enough, ashamed to the family, and I believed him. I looked at Emma, her smile making my eyes sting with tears. Maybe I'll try again. This time, I want to study for both of us. Emma threw her arms around me. I know you can do it. You're the smartest person I know. Then that affirmation from my own daughter reignited the faith I had lost long ago. In the weeks that followed, I re-enrolled in school and applied to a nursing program. The day I held my acceptance letter, my hands shook. I cried, not from fear, but from pride. Emma danced around the room, shouting, "Mom's a student! Mom's a student!" She said it as if it were a victory for us both. And truly, it was. Studying wasn't easy. I was in my 30s, starting over while caring for Emma and working part-time to make ends meet. Some nights I sat before my textbooks, vision blurred, hands trembling from exhaustion. But Emma was always there, handing me a cup of tea, whispering, "Don't give up, Mom. I've seen how strong you are. This is just a small test." I laughed through my tears. My 9-year-old was becoming my greatest source of strength. As for Emma, she grew quickly. She joined school clubs and became a role model for many of her peers. When a classmate confided that her father yelled at her mother, Emma sat down and told her own story. Not with shame, but with courage. We don't have to stay silent. We deserve to be safe. And there are people who will believe us. Hearing her recount this made me ache and swell with pride all at once. Emma hadn't just survived. She had turned her pain into power, becoming a symbol of protection and justice. One night during a study session, Emma said, "Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer. I want to help people like you. I want to make sure no one ever has to be afraid in their own home again." I hugged her tightly, tears falling into her hair. "You will, Emma. You already saved me before you even grew up." Still, life wasn't completely free of shadows. Maxwell might have been behind bars, but his presence haunted me. Some nights I woke in panic, thinking I heard a door slam or his angry voice. I curled up in bed, shaking, and Emma would run in, wrapping her arms around me, whispering, "It's okay, Mom. He can't touch us anymore." Her gaze, though only 9 years old, carried the strength of a shield. I felt safe in her small embrace. Time passed. A year later, I passed my exams and began my internship at the hospital. On my first day wearing the nurse's uniform, I stared at my reflection for a long time. I saw a woman who no longer bowed her head, no longer avoided eye contact. I saw a new Thelma, scarred but standing tall and proud. When I stepped out, Emma clapped like I had won the biggest award in the world. "Mom, you look amazing, like a superhero," I laughed. "No, sweetheart, I'm just a nurse." Emma shook her head. "No, you're my hero." I knew the road ahead was still long. Maxwell would be released in 2 years, and I wasn't naive enough to think the story was over. But this time, I wasn't afraid because I had Emma, my father, and a justice system that had finally seen the truth. I was no longer alone. One evening, as Emma worked on her homework, she looked up and asked, "Mom, if one day Dad gets out of prison and tries to find us, will you be scared?" I stayed quiet for a moment, then answered, "Yes, I'll always be scared. But unlike before, I won't run anymore. Because now I know we have more than just each other. We have justice." Emma smiled, her eyes glowing with wisdom far beyond her years. "Then we'll wait. And if that day comes, we'll face it, just like we did before." Then looking at my daughter, I realized sometimes strength doesn't come from hiding pain, but from daring to reveal it, to face it, and to turn it into a weapon of protection. Emma had taught me that, and I believe anyone who suffers in silence can find the same light, if only they dare to stand up just once. When my daughter turned 12, from scars to a shield for others. Emma turned 12. She was nearly as tall as me now, her face refined, her eyes shining with a maturity I had never seen in any other child. But perhaps no one but me truly understood that maturity was born from wounds, both mine and hers. In the small drawer of her desk, Emma still kept an old USB drive. Inside were all the recordings she had once secretly made. Videos, audio, photos of Maxwell's abuse. She never deleted them, never hid them away. Emma called it a reminder. I once asked her, "Emma, are you sure you want to keep those? They're so painful." She looked straight into my eyes, her voice steadier than most adults. "Mom, if I delete them, I'm afraid one day I'll forget. Not forget the pain, but forget how strong we were to survive. They're not wounds anymore. They're proof of the truth." Hearing her words, I felt both sorrow and pride. My little girl, the child who once clung to me trembling every night, had turned her darkness into a light for others. At school, Emma was becoming a pillar for many friends. Some confided that their parents fought, yelled, or even hit them. Instead of avoiding it, Emma listened. She never judged, only shared her own story as a mirror for them. One classmate told me that during a group session, Emma had stood up and said, "We can't always stop people from doing wrong, but we can keep evidence and we can tell trusted adults. And if no one listens, there's still the law, still our teachers. We're never truly alone." The whole room went silent. A 12-year-old speaking about justice with a calmness that even many adults couldn't match. After that meeting, a girl came to me, Emma's mother, sobbing. She had been abused by her father, but had never dared to speak. Thanks to Emma, she finally found the courage to record evidence and seek help. I held her in my arms, my heart aching, but also glowing. Emma hadn't just saved me. She was saving others too. As for me, my journey was both grueling and rewarding. After 4 years of persistence, I finally graduated with my nursing degree. On the day I received my certificate, my hands trembled like they had the first time I stepped into court against Maxwell, but this time I trembled with happiness. I had turned a dream once crushed into reality. Now I work at a large city hospital. The job is demanding, long shifts, overwhelming pressure. But every time I see a patient smile after being cared for, I feel healed myself. I am no longer the woman who only endured. I am Nurse Thelma Mitchell, and I am proud of that. Colleagues often ask me, "What gave you the strength to come this far?" I usually smile and answer simply, "A promise to my daughter." Our new life is simple but free. No more yelling, no more mocking eyes, no more shadow of Maxwell at the dinner table. We eat together, Emma shares school stories, and I tell her about the hospital. Some nights we curl up watching movies, laughing so loud the neighbors can hear. Sometimes Emma asks about Maxwell, but she no longer calls him Dad. To her, he's just Maxwell, a stranger's name, a memory, not blood. Once she asked me, "Mom, do you ever miss Dad?" I went quiet before answering. "No, Emma. I only remember the woman I was when I was with him, and I never want to be her again." Emma nodded silently, but I saw in her eyes full agreement. Still, darkness never disappears completely. Maxwell still exists out there, distant but real. The law may force him to stay away, but I know he will always remain a part of our story. Perhaps that's why we never stop being vigilant. Emma keeps the evidence not only as a memory, but as a shield. And I carry my scars, not as shame, but as medals. Sometimes, during night shifts, I see frail patients, mothers clutching children with weary eyes, and I remember myself. I whisper, as if speaking to the old Thelma, "You survived, and now you're healing, not just yourself, but others too." Emma is the same. She has become a quiet symbol at school. Teachers tell me she has rare leadership, a strength beyond her years. Just 12, yet her words carry the weight of a lifetime. Our story proves one truth. The greatest strength does not lie in power or violence, but in love and courage. Emma, at only 9 years old, dared to do what many adults could not. Stand up, expose the truth, and protect her mother. She turned pain into a weapon, silence into the voice of justice. And I believe justice is not always about revenge, but about letting the truth be seen, leaving no place for cruelty to hide. If this story touched your heart, please take a second to hit like. It's the simplest way to help more people hear this powerful message. Don't forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts. What do you think of Emma's courage, and what would you do if you were in that situation? Most importantly, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because many more stories of pain, justice, and rebirth are waiting for you. Every subscription is the fuel that keeps us telling truths that might just change someone's life.